Welcome to Stop Overthinking, the podcast for overthinkers, people pleasers, and perfectionists who want to feel calm and confident enough to handle whatever life sends your way. I'm your host, Kristen Odegaard, a women's life and mindset coach, lifelong educator, and recovering perfectionist. Welcome back to the Stop Overthinking podcast. This is episode 16, Getting Out of Other People's Minds. So we spend so much time in our own brains. That's probably why you're listening to this podcast called Stop Overthinking. What's interesting is that we are often obsessing with what other people are thinking, what their words can mean, what their actions could mean. We're in our heads thinking about what we can say or do to make the other person say or do certain things. We even adapt our own behaviors based on what we think is going on for them. So, for example, you might get an email from a client or boss or somebody that you report to that they want to meet and discuss the current project. And this project has been a grind for you, and you're not sure what to expect from the meeting. You want the other person to be happy and like what you've done so far. So, you get this email, and likely your brain is going to start spinning scenarios about what the other person might say and then how you could respond. And then your brain is probably going to offer you version 2 of what they might say. And then you think about how you could respond. And then you might think of something else that goes back with version 1 and then what you could do differently. And then you might even get a version 3 and you are spinning, trying to think about what this other person is thinking about. Does this sound familiar? It can also happen after the conversation when you're ruminating on it. Imagining things from another person's perspective can be helpful and beneficial to understand situations, to develop compassion, and relate better to other people. And I've talked about this before. So I do want to set this up that there are times it's helpful to think about what other people are thinking, and then there are times that it is not helpful or useful for us at all. So when it's helpful, and like I said, to better understand something, relate better to other people, we can do that instead of just our default thinking only about us, what benefits us through our lens, our beliefs, our worth. And, that could be useful when your partner leaves dirty dishes in the sink in the morning. And you might want to consider, were they in a rush this morning and thought they'd get to it later? Might be curious to think what they were thinking. Or your default, which is maybe that they're being disrespectful of you, not paying attention when you ask them to do something. Again, it's a choice and you get to decide. Can be helpful to have compassion and empathy and think about what we're making it mean to us personally. But some of us are just in other people's minds way too much. We are fixated on what they mean. What do they intend? What do they think? What do they feel? And then we make our mental and emotional state dependent on them and their thoughts and feelings and actions. We think that in order for us to know how to be and how to show up, that we have to know what they're thinking and feeling and doing. And the reality is this keeps us stuck and spinning in indecision. I talked about this a few episodes ago. I think it was episode 8 on second guessing with indecision. And that's generally when you are just thinking about the same things over and over again with the idea that if you think about it more, it's just going to become clear and the answer will be obvious. Okay, that's generally what overthinking is. But of course, it doesn't become clear because you're not doing anything other than thinking the same thoughts over and over again. And when we're in other people's minds, it's similar to indecision. We're spinning on what they might have been thinking or feeling and doing. We're waiting for it to be clear so that you can decide how you want to think or feel or act. And this is ridiculous because there's nothing you can do about it. It leads you to feeling powerless sometimes because you've lost sight of what you can control, which are your own thoughts and feelings and actions. So spending all this time and emotional energy trying to figure out what you really can't figure out and can't control isn't useful. This will come up at work, with your family, with your friends, if you're dating or in a relationship, and you get hung up on what's going on in someone else's brain. What are they thinking? Why haven't they texted me back yet? Why did this person cancel on me? What did they mean when they said XYZ? And then we are trying to be in their brains. It can be easy to tell the difference between considering what other people are thinking and whether it's useful or not. For example, if it's useful, you may brainstorm what they might be thinking. It takes the focus off of you. It's not about your worth. And you're having thoughts from curiosity or love or compassion for the person. That's useful. You will likely feel calmer or more centered. Okay, all good things. On the other hand, if as you're thinking about what this other person might be thinking and you're going in circles and feeling agitated, that is not useful. If at any time you're thinking, I don't know what to do, or I need to know what they're thinking or feeling before I can feel better, you need to get out of their minds. This is easier said than done. And part of that is just how we were conditioned as women. We were taught that what others think of us is more important than our own thinking. And our job is to make everyone like us all the time. That anyone we encounter anywhere in our life should like or accept us. Okay. Nothing is wrong if that's the way you think. Your brain is doing what it knows how to do and what you have allowed it to do pretty much for your entire life. Okay. What we can do about it, though, is retrain your brain and help it focus on what's actually important and helpful in your life rather than some of the social conditioning or just the way you were raised. So, how do we get out of other people's minds and back into our own? Part of that is just accepting that regardless of what others are thinking, doing, saying, feeling, you get to decide how you want to show up. This is a decision for you. Notice I said you get to decide how you want to show up. It's not really even about responding because that too is reactive. If you're thinking, how should I respond? You're still basing your thoughts on this other person. So to truly get out of their minds, trying to figure out what they're doing, what they're thinking, how you need to behave in order to, appease them, all of that's reactive. So what you need to do is basically start from scratch. Go back to those values and your priorities that I'm always talking about. How do you want to show up? Who's the woman that you want to be? How do you want to think and feel? It's okay to put yourself first in this model of not being reactive, not thinking about what other people are thinking. It's not being callous to another person because chances are that's not who you want to be anyway. But it does allow you to be more authentic and more conscious, and you get to decide. So this is one where, again, it's so much easier to say than it is to do. And it happens because we have these manuals of what we want other people to do. We have these ideas that the way that we think is the way that other people think as well, or that they should think. We want to save people and fix things. We want to nurture them and protect them. And that's all well and good if the other people want that too. It's not helpful when people aren't asking you for your opinion and your help. It's not helpful when it's out of your control. It's not helpful if you are feeling agitated and using up time and energy that you could be using for the things that really matter in your life. So, bottom line, allow other adults to make their own decisions, to show up as they're going to show up. And you are focused in your values and your priorities. And you get to decide. You get to use your brain power and energy for the things that benefit you. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Stop Overthinking podcast with Kristen Odegaard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who would benefit from the message. To learn more about working with me and links to social media and free resources, head over to my website, coachwithkristen.com. That's Kristen spelled Kristen. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Have a great week.